the NFL has approved by a vote of 29-3 a new kickoff rule. And it is a kickoff rule that is significant. They are hoping to increase returns while minimizing risks. So the way as a fan, you're going to see this, the teams, instead of flying down the field, for the most part, they're going to be lined up really, really close to each other. And then that's where the collision is going to happen. Do you think that college should, or would you like to see the college game embrace the NFL's new kickoff rules?
The advantage that college football has, we get a year to watch it, which is what the NFL, they're going to roll it out and revisit it in a year. So I say, let's see how it goes. If it goes as well as special teams coaches think it will go, then it could be one of the more exciting plays and we get actual returns. Because the NFL level, it's reached a point where it's almost just a meaningless play. I mean, the returns in 2003, it was like 79% of kickoffs were returned. This past year, it was 21%, including in the Super Bowl. There were 13 touchbacks. Not one kickoff was returned. So everyone's just like, boring. All right, let's just not even watch. But I also think this will be one of the most dramatic differences from a viewer perspective that we've seen. From a what the heck are they doing? Because it's going to look, and if you guys, I'm sure you guys have seen it, but if our listeners have watched in the XFL games from years past, they've experimented within that league, and it looks awkward. The kicker's all by himself. There's two rows of guys. One of them's on the line. The other one's kind of in this 5-yard box, and then you've got two returners. But I think it could provide for some excitement. The one thing that I am, I don't even know what to do with this because it is what it is. But the lack of onside surprise kicks, and think about the impact surprise onside kicks have had in the Super Bowl with Sean Payton, in national championship games with Bama Clemson, in other situations where you've tried to steal a possession coming out at halftime. You won't be able to do that. You can still do onside late in the game. If you're trailing, you have to announce it. You have to say, hey, we're going to do it. So they go in more traditional lineup. But I'm willing to sacrifice that for what potentially could be something exciting.
I can't wait for the first time I'm watching an NFL game this year with friends or family who don't normally watch the NFL, who are very casual fans, and they see this kickoff. I just can't wait to see the reactions. The people who have no idea this is happening, and the first time they're like, what the hell is that? What's happened? This sport, it's gone soft. They don't even play football anymore. Put flags on them, skirts, blah, blah, blah. That's what I can't wait for. As for the rule, yeah, I'm kind of with you, Danny. I don't know. I didn't watch it in the XFL. I don't really have any opinions on whether this is going to work, whether it's going to be interesting. I'm happy that we're at least letting the NFL run the experiment first before we decide whether or not to bring it to college. I'm also happy that of the teams that helped design the rules, it's the Bears special teams coach was involved. And that makes me happy because the Bears special teams coach already knows how to exploit the new rules because he helped put them together. So at least the Bears will have a small advantage in it this season.
I like it. I think it makes the game more exciting. Now, at the G5 level, I feel like we already get a lot of wild kickoff return stuff because they don't have a lot of guys who can consistently kick it in the end zone. And they definitely don't have a lot of guys who have enough speed to really cover well on special teams. At the Power 5 level, I do think it is trending a little bit more to the NFL. Across the sport last year, we had 600 kickoffs and 3780 were touchbacks. So a little more than half. But I think if you look at the upper levels of Georgia's got a guy that can put it in the end zone 80% of the time. Most of these real elite teams have a guy who can either kick it through the end zone or they intentionally kick it really high to try to dare you to return it, and they have their guys down there. I would expect college to follow it, not based on any intel, but based on past behavior, which was just last summer. We had Dennis Dodd on. They were using player safety to justify all these different rules to try to limit liability. Again, if you see the NFL doing something, it's player safety there. A lot of times college follows that.
So you kick it from the 25. Your teammates are lined up at the 40. Then you've got a 5-yard gap, or is it more than 5?
No, it's 5 yards.
I had a diagram up earlier.
Okay.
Or is it a 10-yard gap and they have a 5-yard area to line up in? I think it's a 10-yard gap.
Like between 5 to 10 is the bubble where the if you are on the kickoff return, and that's where I think special teams coaches, to your point, Tom, they're probably going to go nuts with their formations. They're just going to be in the lab scribbling out all these different ways to space out your players and try to create whatever advantage is possible. Do we think that college kickers from the 25 are still booting it out of the end zone?
Not most of them, no.
Just the like very, very tip top elite ones.
Yeah, I mean that's the fun thing, or fun is the wrong word. That's the funny thing about the NFL rule change is that most NFL kickers are still just going to boot the ball through the end zone.
Right. And that's what I think they'll revisit to see if they need to move it back further. Since we're talking about rules, the other thing that concerns me greatly, and thank goodness. Well, first of all, I'm glad we're not doing away with kickoffs because that was a legit option on the table from the NFL. And I know college football has proposed this too, of just doing away with kickoffs altogether. I am very glad that we're not going that direction, or we're at least trying to tweak things to keep this a part of the game. The other thing is the hip drop tackle, which obviously, our listeners, I'm sure, are aware of that the NFL, they're trying to ban that. Every single defensive player, I think, except for Kyle Long, who's just saying he's a little quirky. I don't know. He needs
an
to shut
offensive
up.
lineman.
Kyle needs to shut up. But yeah, exactly. What's an offensive lineman doing waiting on this one? I think that one is going to be an absolute disaster for the NFL. I don't think it survives long enough to make it to college. If it does, I think it's going to make the NFL even more of a unrecognizable product from what we watched 10 years ago. But I really think it's going to be a disaster. I think they'll call it a lot in the preseason, and then people are going to freak out, and you're going to see some players like running after and letting up and stopping, and it's going to be really awful. And I think they're going to do away with it after a year. But it's something to keep an eye on because to Bud's point, college football does sort of, look at all the rules we've changed and the 2-minute timeout and, keeping the clock moving. We're morphing into the NFL. That's one that keep an eye on that concerns me for sure.
I'm
like
going to bet
4th and 20, Mahomes scrambles around, throws for 7 into the game. Oh wait, like you don't. We'll have a play that's decided on that, just like targeting
on a hip drop. Yeah, because I was going to say the reason that scares me about the hip drop is the judgment and just like
tackle.
Yeah,
I am going to bet so many overs in the first few weeks of the NFL season because you won't be allowed to tackle and there'll be a bunch of 15-yard penalties. And I will say, just in general, like I get it that you're trying. Like there were a lot of injuries caused by these kind of tackles last year, compared to like
8, not that many.
But compared to the amount of actual tackles there were of that qualified for the rule, it was a high rate of injury. I get it. You want to limit the injury factor. But at the end of the day, like if you're just training defenses to tackle in a different way now, the new way they tackle will just lead to new injuries. Like you can't get injury out of this sport. It is just it's inbred in it. It is part of what, it's a collision sport. Two human beings can't run into each other at high speeds and not hurt each other at some point. So it'll be interesting to see what these rule changes lead to as far as what's the next thing we're not going to be allowed to do. And then we got to solve that and we'll create the next thing you're not allowed to do.
I think it's a consequence of taking the head out of tackling, by the way.
Yes, agreed. Because
got to get the head out of tackling. Okay, let's have targeting. Well, guys adapt to it, like Tom says.
You cannot make football safe while keeping the sport football. It is inherently dangerous and violent, which is one of the reasons everyone loves watching it. Yeah. And they're going further and further away from this. Have you guys seen the 3 points? Like we've talked so much about targeting and the indicators and all this stuff, and it's hard enough to keep track of that. Are you ready for the 3 things they have to look for? Must see a tackler grab the runner. They must see the tackler swivel himself up in the air, and they must see that swivel lead to the tackler unweighted, the airborne motion before which he then falls in the ball carrier's leg area or below the knee. Like,
is this reviewable?
I don't know. It's going to slow things down so much. I'm telling you, I think it's going to be a disaster. I think they're going to call it in preseason, and everybody's going to be like, this is ridiculous. What are we doing? And then they won't change it because I think they're going to revisit this in a year. They'll just tell all the officials like, all right, this is almost impossible. It has to be blatant. Probably if somebody gets hurt, then they'll call it. If somebody's down.
And what will happen is Will Brinson and his ilk will be on Twitter talking about how terrible the officials in the NFL are blaming the officials for the impossible rules they've been given to regulate on a weekly basis with every single play. Oh, officiating's horrible. No, the rules are horrible. And you keep adding more horrible rules, putting more pressure on the officials to be absolutely perfect. The officials are fine. It's the rules that suck.
Also, like, how are we designating up in the air? Do you remember when we had the launching component of
Yes.
targets, right? Like,
Yep.
did you have to leave both feet, or as long as you're transferring energy from your heels to your toes in like a jumping style motion, like what it like, could you launch into somebody but not leave the ground? Like we had that whole debate. This has got to be reviewable, I would think.
I don't think it is.
Everything's
I don't-
reviewable. Let's just review every single play.
Gene,
Oh my god! Thank God CBS has a good one. All right, because there's another network out there where the two analysts are just like constantly like, how the hell did we get stuck with this guy? And it's one of the most entertaining parts of that other broadcast. Like CBS, Gene actually knows what the hell he's talking about like 99% of the time, which is hard to do in real time. The other guy is like literally flipping coins. And then you can tell the analysts like hate that they get stuck with this dude.
Gene was getting cooked this week. Not cooked, not roasted. He was getting worked this weekend. There was one point, like sitting in CBS Sports HQ studios, you've got all the truck feeds, right? And so you're hearing Gene over here. There's a super controversial play, but he's in New York, so we can't bring him in on this other feed because he's already dealing with this one. I mean, he was just jumping from site to site to site to site. Getting his
the Gene that does hoops for us is the same Gene that does the NFL.
Yeah, Gene Steratore.
Oh yeah, he was both. Yeah,
he was an NFL
like
official and a college basketball
We're getting
official.
our money's worth out of him.
Yeah, he's great. Yeah.
It was funny because we're sitting there watching the games on, I think it was Sunday night, and there was a review, and I'm watching them with Lynn, and she's like, God, he must be exhausted. He's been doing this all weekend. And I just look at her, I says, yeah, I can't imagine sitting around for 4 days watching college basketball nonstop. That must be horrible. Nobody else would ever do that.
No, shout out to Gene Steratore. We are very lucky to have like just an awesome official analyst there for both the NFL and for college basketball. Oh, one last thing on the kickoff rule. So if we get it, we want to get it while Zach Branch is still in college football, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Can we accelerate this? We only got we got 2 more years of Zach Branch. So we won't have it this year, but he's got 1 more year of college football. So if we could get the kickoff rule in for more Zach Branch highlights, I think I'd be here for it.
I do think like if they implemented this rule in the college game, like I think in the NFL, you'll see more returns. I don't think you're going to see a giant influx of touchdowns, but I think if you put this rule in college and you get like the games like USC versus San Jose State, you're going to see like 2 or 3 kick returns for a touchdown a game.
That'd be awesome. I'll sign up for it. Let's
Did
go.
you see the stats from Sam Schwartzstein?
What I need more context.
He's the one who created the rule.
Yeah, he created it originally for XFL or UFL or whatever it was.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He said 0 injuries suffered in over 400 kickoffs, which is insane, and 93% return rate. So I'm trying to look here to see like where they kicked off from. All right, so that's midfield 40.
It's a 25.
But it was a different.
No, Chip, they're kicking us off from
The 30.
from something with an actual number on it. So like it might have been like the 30.
Oh.
Yeah, the NFL did tweak some of the rules that the XFL were using. I do not know what they were off the top of my head. Again, I haven't really dug too deep into this. I'm just gonna wait and see what it looks like.
Yeah, I wonder if you have to move it back a little more, like Chip was saying, because the NFL legs, I'm guessing, are a good bit better than the XFL. But like, how much better? There's only 30 kickers in like, there's got to be another 30 dudes in the country who can boot the ball out of the end zone.
Yeah,
like we see in college.
Well, we're on the subject of the NFL. Like the Bears were chosen to play in the Hall of Fame game. Like the first preseason game of the year. Do you think it's crazy how Caleb Williams' first game in the NFL will be in Canton, and considering that's where his career is going to end in Canton?
I like it. Also,
I just can't wait till he holds out and he doesn't sign with Chicago because he says I don't want to play for a trash organization.
He's already there. Don't worry about it. He's a Bear already.
Don't you think like kicker for an XFL or UFL or like any of these like non-NFL leagues, that's a great side hustle, man. Like you get team sponsored travel. You're not going to get injured. Like I think it's hard to be a defensive lineman on the side, and like still go work at your normal job as like an accountant or whatever you do. Like these guys they try to keep the dream alive. Kicker, that's awesome, man. It's like cool. Go get a little leg workout. Go kick some. Back in the office on Monday, like you're not hurt.
It's a great side hustle in the NFL.
You could co-host a podcast.
Daddy went there.
Yeah. I mean, but now they got all these returns. What if you got the oh no? You're the last man out there. Got to go make a play.
Kicker needs to hit the weight room.
Yeah.